Hello and welcome back to the channel. My name is Nathan and today we are doing our 23rd build for Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition, a build I'm entitling the Storm Shaman. Now for this build in this week's video in particular, I'm going to be doing something a little new. I'm going to be doing a new format here. So this build, I'm going to go through everything a little bit quicker as this is actually going to be two videos in one. I'm going to be presenting two versions of this build. First, a version from the 2014 rules, and then a version with the new 2024 rules. This is a build that should work under either version, but as I'm going to be going quicker in an effort to keep the length of the video down, I'm not going to be diving as deep into any specific details. So if there are any questions you have or something that you think I missed, please let me know in the comments. And with that, let's go ahead and jump right into this build. All right, so here is our agenda for this video. I'm going to introduce and talk about the concept of the build. Then I'm going to go through the 2014 version. I'm going to quickly go through just kind of the general progression of the character and kind of what their tactics are at each of our key breakpoints. So that's level 6, level 9, level 13, and level 17. I'll talk briefly about the class features that we'll get in those ranges and kind of what this character's tactics are and the kind of damage this character can output. Now for this character in particular, this character is actually going to be very well rounded and versatile, so I'm going to be grading them as a burst damage dealer, although I'm not necessarily fully optimizing for that, but I just want to make that clear as kind of those are the mathematic numbers that I did calculate. All right, so let's jump into our introduction and build concept. What is this build all about? Well, we are a well-rounded caster build with a variety of support, control, and burst damage abilities. This character is also going to be very durable due to their armor proficiencies and spells and that kind of thing, and this is actually going to be even further amplified in the 2024 version of the character. This character also has strong elemental themes, and I feel like this character offers an excellent foundation for RP. You are basically going to be a servant of the storms and nature, and you are a character who's very in tune with the elemental forces of storms and that kind of thing. Now, this character is originally based on a pretty simple idea of how can I get a Tempest Cleric's Challenge Divinity with Lightning Bolt in our Wisdom stat. So this build is kind of based around that idea, and I've kind of taken that concept and gone from there. So the books you will need for this build, if you're going to do the 2014 version of the build, you need a Player's Handbook, Xanathar's Guide to Everything, and Tasha's Cauldron of Everything. And if you're going to be doing the 2024 version of the build, you will need the new 2024 Player's Handbook. And then I'm also using a Legacy Cleric subclass from the original 2014 Player's Handbook. Now, when we get to that point in that build, I'll talk about kind of how to transition cleric builds or subclasses from 2014 into 2024 because the rules have changed, and I'll be kind of going through those more in future videos as I talk more about the 2024 classes. All right, so for the 2014 version of the build, I'm going to cover our starting class, race, and stats here. So we are using the point buy method to determine stats as always. I'm going to take an 8 strength, a 14 dexterity, a 15 constitution, a 10 intelligence, and a 15 wisdom, and an 8 charisma. Now, I'm going to be starting this build in Cleric, and the race I'm going to be using is Custom Lineage, which gets a free feat out of Tasha's Cauldron of Everything. So our starting feat is going to be Resilient Constitution. That's why we have our +1 marked by our con and the save proficiency there. And then we're going to put our racial +2 into Wisdom, so we have a 17 to set ourselves up for a half feat down the road. We also get Dark Vision or a skill proficiency. I would take Dark Vision, but it doesn't really matter that much. And we get medium armor, shields, and simple weapon proficiencies as a Cleric. Now, importantly, we are actually a Tempest Cleric, so we do get heavy armor and martial weapons, although I don't plan on using those on this character. I want to be casting spells and using medium armor, as I find the stat cost for heavy armor is a bit too much for the benefit that it actually gives you. All right, in terms of the level progression of this character, rather than going level by level here, I'm just going to give it to you here. So we're going to start at level 1 as a Tempest Cleric. Then our next 5 levels are going to be Land Druid, specifically the Mountain Land, to level 5. And then we're going to take a second level in Cleric, and then we're going to go Druid the rest of the way. Now, the equipment this character wants to use, we want to use medium armor, a shield with our holy symbol on it, and then a druidic focus or a component pouch of some kind to as a focus for our druid spells. Now, for this character build in particular, I'm going to assume our dungeon master is okay with metal armor or will allow us a natural analog. The line in the 2014 Druid says that druids will not wear armor or use shields made of metal. Now, will not doesn't not mean cannot, so I like to think that you could use whatever you want, but if your DM's like, no, you can't use metal armor, hopefully they'll provide you with a natural alternative, like something made out of animal chitin or something like that. Now, as far as the feat progression on this particular character, we're going to take Resilient Constitution at level 1 with our racial feat. At level 5, which is Druid 4, we're going to take Telekinetic and boost our Wisdom from 17 to 18. Or if your DM allows the Silvery Barb spell out of Strixhaven, I would take that with the Fey Touch spell. At level 10, which is going to be Druid 8, we'll boost our Wisdom to 20. And then at level 14, Druid 12, you can pretty much take whatever quality of life feat you want. Warcaster, Alert, Lucky, any of these are all great. I'm probably going to take Warcaster on this character if I was building it, but in a vacuum, but I'm not sure exactly what I would do in a real campaign, as it heavily depends on what my experience would actually be. All right, now, in terms of our tactics, now, at level 6, we are going to be a Cleric 1, Druid 5, so we are a 6th level caster, and we have the spells that you can see there just over to my right there. My left, you're right. Anyway, as a character with these kind of levels, we've got our wild shape ability out of Druid twice per short rest. We can turn into a CR 1/2 beast with no flying speed. We would be mainly using this for utility and infiltration and that kind of thing. We have the Wild Companion, so we can also use the use of our wild shape to summon a familiar that lasts for, I believe, an hour. And we can use this to scout and that kind of thing, a nice feature. We have Natural Recovery out of Land Druids, so this is much like the wizard feature that lets them get back spells. Once per short rest, we can recover spell slots. We're going to take Telekinetic at Druid 4, so we have that. We also have Wrath of the Storm out of Tempest Cleric, which as a reaction lets us blast people with thunder or lightning damage if they damage us. Now, in terms of our key spells, I would probably take things like Guidance, Thorn Whip, and Toll the Dead on this character. For cantrips, we've got things like Absorb Elements, Bless, Healing Word, Command, and Thunderwave as first level spells. We've got a whole bunch of good second level spells like Spike Growth, Hold Person, Enhance Ability, Pass Without Trace, Moonbeam, and there's a lot of these. At third level, you've got very powerful spells like Conjure Animal, our Lightning Bolt that we actually got from Land Druid, and then Revivify and that kind of thing. Now, one of the things about this character in particular is, as both of your classes are full prepared spellcasters, you can swap out the entirety of your spell list every long rest, which is something that will make this character very flexible and very powerful. All right, now, in terms of our tactical overview and tactics at this level, we are a generalist caster, and we will be for pretty much our whole career. We are a well-rounded blend of control, blasting, and support. Our burst tactic is generally going to be Lightning Bolt, and we can use things like Conjure Animals and Cantrips, or Call Lightning and Summon Fey and that kind of thing to do damage per round, and we have a lot of good control spells, including Command out of Cleric, which does not require concentration. Now, in terms of our burst combo I use to calculate damage on this character, I'm just going to do Lightning Bolt plus Summon Fey, and we're going to be doing this pretty much the whole way. In this case, these are both at level 3, and against an armor class of 10, this character would do 37.4 damage in their burst round, and against an armor class of 15 and creatures with plus 5 to their saving throws, we would do 32.4 damage. Now, compared to my burst damage dealers I've made in the past, this is very low, and it's pretty much going to be that way for a long time. But that said, this damage is AoE, and we are not primarily a burst damage dealer, as I said, and so this character has options, and that's one of the things that I think is going to make them an effective character. We are very good out of combat with our support spells and that kind of thing, and that's something that we're going to have throughout the entirety of this character's career. Moving up to level 9, we have taken another Cleric level and a few more Druid levels, so we are now a 5th level caster as a 9th level character, and importantly, we have gained our Channel Divinity out of Tempest Cleric. So once per short or long rest, we can use our Channel Divinity to do maximum damage with one of our Thunder or Lightning spells. So we're going to use this to do max damage Lightning Bolts if we want to. We also have gained Land Stride, which we ignore difficult terrain from plants and damage from non-magical plants and that kind of thing. This is an okay feature. Our Natural Recovery is up to 4 levels of slots, and we now have access to up to 4th level Druid spells. In terms of our tactics, they haven't really changed. We have some better spell options available, but what I'm going to use to calculate our burst damage is still the same. It's just going to be Upcast Lightning Bolt with Destructive Wrath to level 5, which, by the way, does 10d6 at this point. Maximized is 60 damage on average. And then we're going to be doing Summon Fey at 4th level, which means it'll get 2 attacks. So against an enemy with an armor class of 10 and no bonus to their saves, we're up to 81.7 damage in our burst round. And against an armor class of 16 and creatures with +6 to their saves, we're up to 69.5. And since last time, we have more than doubled our damage, and this is mainly due to that destructive wrath on the lightning bolt, although the Summon Fey is doing about 80% more damage now as well. Moving on to level 13, we have taken 4 more Druid levels to get to this point. So we are now a 7th level caster with up to 6th level Druid spells. There are some great ones, but again, what you prepare really depends on your campaign. And as a full prepared caster, it doesn't really matter. You can change your spells every adventuring day. We can swap out everything, except for the ones out of our subclass. We now have maxed out Wild Shape ability, so we can shift into something of a CR1 and we can fly with that. We have gained Nature's Ward, which this thing from Land Druid is not very good. We can't be charmed or frightened by elementals or fey, and we are immune to poison and disease. It's really not that great, and one of the things I don't like about the 2014 version of the Land Druid is pretty much all of your class features except for natural recovery kind of suck. And you're basically here to get the spells on your specific school or your specific land's list. Yeah, we've also taken our next ability score increase here to cap our wisdom. At this point, our tactics are pretty much the same, although we have access to higher level spells and that kind of thing. But for the sake of burst damage, it's just going to be upcast Lightning Bolt and upcast Summon Fey. We're now up to 114.4 and 92.4 damage against our low and high armor class, which since last time is an increase of about 40%. All right, now moving on to the final level I look at when I'm doing damage reports. Level 17, we are a Cleric 2, Druid 15, so another 4 Druid levels here. We get Nature's Sanctuary, which is the capstone of Land Druids. What this does, if a beast or plant creature attacks us, they have to make a wisdom save against our Druid spell save DC, and on a failed save, they must choose a different target or the attack automatically misses, and if they pass the save, they're immune to this effect for 24 hours. Here's the thing. At this level, creatures aren't really good. You're not going to be encountering many beasts or plants, and if you do, they're probably not a threat to you. So this feature is honestly really bad, in my opinion, and not very good. We do get another ability score increase during this range here. I would probably take Warcaster, as I mentioned, but again, what you take will depend on your campaign. Our natural recovery is up to 8 levels of spells, and again, much like the wizard version of this feature, you can't recover any spell slots that are higher than 5th level. We now have 7th and 8th level Druid spells, and there are a lot of very powerful ones like Tsunami and Whirlwind and that kind of thing. But again, we can swap out our prepared spells every long rest, so it doesn't really matter what we pick. Our tactics, again, prepare the spells that you need, but when calculating burst damage, we're just going to be upcasting our Lightning Bolt and Summon Fey again. So we are now at 150.9 and 119.1 damage against our respective low and high armor classes and save bonuses. And this is an increase of about 30% since last time, mainly due to spell slot scaling. And about 2/3 of this damage is from the Lightning Bolt, and the other 30 to 35% or so is from the Summon Fey. All right, now, so overall, this build is pretty darn effective, and we have the versatility of a Druid combined with some burst ability thanks to our Cleric dip. Now, let's talk about the 2024 version of this build, and this is my first 2024 character build that I've published. I've been working on this one for a while because I was trying to figure out exactly how I wanted it to work, but I think I'm pretty proud of the result. So, for our starting class, we are once again beginning with Cleric. There are reasons for this that I'll explain, and we're taking pretty much the same stats, although we have to use a different race, so I'll kind of explain as we get here. So for our background, if you're not allowed to use a custom background at your table, and you must use one of the ones that is written in the player's handbook from 2024, I would use the Sage background. The 3 ability scores you can potentially boost here are Constitution, Intelligence, and Wisdom, and this works perfectly for any Cleric or Druid, so we can boost our Constitution by 1 and our Wisdom by 2 to get 16 and 17, and again, point by, same stats as last time. Now, the Sage background gives us the Origin feat Magic Initiate Wizard, And this is going to be fantastic for this character. We get to pick 2 cantrips off the wizard list as well as a single first level spell. And we're going to pick a wisdom as our casting modifier for these. I'm going to take Mindsliver because it's an absolutely great cantrip and is wonderful to have, something that we were missing out before to boost our control. We're going to take Minor Illusion or whatever you want for your second wizard cantrip for utility. And then I would love to take the shield spell on this character. This is a spell that we missed out on before unless we took a specific race, and so taking this here will mean that this character is going to be very defensive with shield and absorb elements, and it's going to be actually great armor because we get medium armor from being a cleric, so this character is going to be very durable. As for our race, if we're using a race out of the 2024 Player's Handbook, honestly, it doesn't actually matter a huge amount. My top 2 choices are Goliath, because they have a 35-foot move speed and can transform to get a 45-foot move speed. Or honestly, you can pick whatever you want, but my second choice would probably be Human with an extra origin feat, which I would use to take Musician. And then humans get Heroic Inspiration at the end of every long rest. And if you have Musician, you can hand out more Heroic Inspiration at the end of every long rest, so you can basically have your whole party inspired at the end of every long rest, and overall very powerful. That said, Druids do get access to a very good Emanation spell at higher levels, and having a race that is naturally speedy can help you do a lot of damage to a lot of enemies with that, so that's kind of why I want to pick Goliath. You can pick Cloud or Stone. Cloud gives you a teleport, Stone gives you damage reduction, so it honestly doesn't matter a huge amount, and again, you can pick whatever race you want as kind of fits your specific character. Now, we also get our Divine Order feature as a level 1 cleric, and I want to take the Thaumaturge Divine Order. So what this does is we get to know 1 extra cantrip off the cleric list, and we can add our Wisdom modifier to our Arcana and Religion checks. And this is something I think is great. In the past, it's really easy to make a cleric that's not proficient in religion, and that doesn't make a huge amount of sense, and I think this feature is great. The other option is Protection, which gives proficiency in martial weapons and heavy armor, but as a main caster, we don't really need this. All right, so here is going to be the level progression for the 2024 build. I'm going to do Cleric 1 into Land Druid 5. Now, I did consider using Sea Druid on here, and you would have a little bit better damage output. Both Land and Sea Druids do get access to the Lightning Bolt spell, which is something I wanted on this character. But I wanted to go with Land for consistency with the 2014 version. Then we have to go up to Cleric 3 to get our subclass. Under the 2024 rules, all classes get their features at level 3. And so we have to wait. We have to put 1 extra level into Cleric, and other than that, we'll just take Druid levels again the rest of the way. And this character, again, is going to be using medium armor, a shield with a holy symbol on it, and a druidic focus, probably a component pouch, but doesn't have to be. And one of the cool things I like is they removed that silly line that said druids will not wear metal armor or use shields that are made out of metal, so there are no more limitations on that under the 2024 rules. All right, as for our feat progression, we don't have a starting feat other than our origin feat, which is Magic Initiate Wizard. So at Druid 4, which is our character level 5, I want to take the new Warcaster feat. So basically all the new general feats are half feats now, so we can boost our Wisdom to 18. And then for our next 2 feats that we're going to get at Druids level 8 and 12, I would pick 2 out of these 3 probably. I'd probably pick out of Telekinetic, Inspiring Leader, and Fey Touched for Silvery Barbs if this spell is allowed. One of the things I like about the new Inspiring Leader feat is it now you can use Wisdom or Charisma, and so it's not just limited on Charisma-based characters, and I think that would be a great thing to have for this character as you're kind of that overall party support and that well-rounded guy. All right, so going into our tactics, and I'm going to talk a little bit through class features in this section on this version of the build. We are still a Cleric 1, Druid 5 at this point. We have a bajillion cantrips, 2 from Magic Initiate Wizard, 4 out of Cleric, 4 out of Druid, and an extra 1 from our Druid subclass that I will explain. Now, we have our Thaumaturge out of Cleric. We get Druidic out of Druid. This gives us the Speak with Animals spell, always prepared. And then additionally, we get a Primal Order at Druid 1. So we can pick Magician or Warden. Warden gives you martial weapons and medium armor, but again, we already have medium armor, so I'm going to take Magician. What this does is an extra cantrip from the Druid list, so that's why we have 4. And we also get an extra one out of Land Druid and all this other stuff. So it's a pretty interesting thing here. Well, the reason that we have 4 is because we got one at Druid level 4. And interestingly, the Magician thing also gives you a bonus to your Arcana and Nature checks equal to your Wisdom modifier. So as far as I can tell, and there's no reason why it shouldn't, Thaumaturge and Magician stack. So we get to add our Wisdom modifier twice to our Arcana checks, once to our Religion checks, and once to our Nature checks, which will actually make us pretty darn good at all of those skills, which is something I just love. Now, they have reworked Druid's Wild Shape. We get 2 uses per long rest, and we recover 1 use every short rest. We have a limited number of animal forms that we know. At this level, Druid 5, it is 6, and we can shift to a max CR of 1/2 and have no fly speed. The new Wild Companion is great. What this does is we can cast Find Familiar and spend 1 of our Wild Shape slots, but the Familiar lasts until we finish a long rest instead of just an hour, so that is fantastic and something that has been buffed. Then for our Druid Circle, we're going to take Circle of the Land, as I mentioned, and I'll go through their features now. So what the new Land Druid gets. So there are 4 different kinds of land that you can pick. There is Arid, Polar, Temperate, and Tropical. Each of them has an associated spell list, and they give you a cantrip, and at this level, a 1st level spell, a 2nd level spell, and a 3rd level spell that are always prepared. Now, one of the really cool things is that we can swap out our land type that we're associated with every long rest. Now, the main land type I want to be associated with in this character is Temperate, because it gives the Lightning Bolt spell. But you can absolutely swap them out, and you have this flexibility to prepare different spells by swapping out your land association. And there's a bunch of other interesting boons that gives you. The Land's Aid feature, what this does is as a magic action, we can expend our Wild Shape, and we basically get to we can blast an area, and then enemies have to make a con save against our spell save DC or take some necrotic damage, and then 1 creature of our choice in that area can heal. And it's 2d6 damage, 2d6 healing, and the damage and healing scale by 1d6 at Druid 10 and 14. So it's kind of like a cantrip. An interesting thing, I'm not sure how useful this would actually be, but the fact that it doesn't spend a spell slot, and we're probably not using wild shape things in combat, is something that might make this interesting. I'm going to take the new Warcaster, as I mentioned here, which you can use to boost intelligence, wisdom, or charisma. We're going to boost our wisdom. This also gives us advantage on our concentration checks and gives us reaction castings of spells and that kind of thing. And then at level 5, we get a new feature called Wild Resurgence. And what this does is once on each of our turns, if we have no uses of Wild Shape left, we can give ourselves 1 by expending a spell slot with no action required. And then in addition, we can expend a use of Wild Shape, no action required, to give ourselves a level 1 spell slot, but we can't do that again until we finish a long rest. So this is some additional means of spell slot recovery. Now, one of the other interesting things about the 2024 rules is the number of spells we have prepared of any individual class scales with our class level, not our class level and our attributes. So that's just an interesting thing here, but as a Cleric Druid, we can still swap out the entirety of our spells every long rest. All right. Our tactics are pretty much the same here. You could use any of the new Conjure Animal spells and that kind of thing like that. I'm not going to get too much into detail on what a lot of the new spells do. My go-to tactics on this build are still the same, which is going to be Lightning Bolt plus Summon Phase, what I'm going to use to calculate damage. And at this level, we are doing the same amount of damage as the 2014 version of the build. Moving on to level 9, we are taking a few more Cleric levels. At Cleric level 2, we get Channel Divinity. We get 2 uses per long rest, and we get 1 back per short rest. This is new. Before it was 1, so we actually have more options to do this. We get Divine Spark, which is a little bit of damage, and then we get the new Turn Undead, which is nice. But importantly, at Cleric 3, we get our Cleric subclass. I'm going to go with the Old Tempest. Now, the way that you adapt the cleric subclasses, at least, if they have something that gives you armor proficiency, uh, you're going to ignore that because that was an option way back at level 1, and then you can take the Channel Divinity and the other subclass features, as well as their spell lists. So, and you'll get their first level and second level spells at this point because you basically had to wait, and that's in line with the new cleric subclasses. If you kind of read both, it should be pretty easy to make a comparison and determine what you should get if you're using an old cleric subclass. So we get Fog Cloud, Thunderwave, Gust of Wind, and Shatter, always prepared. We get Wrath of the Storm, which is our reactive save that we can force or we have them take some damage. And importantly, we get our Channel Divinity Destructive Wrath here to blast people. Now, at Druid 6, we have gained the natural recovery feature again. They moved this up to level 6. It is the same as before. So we can recover 3 levels of spell slots at this point, and we also get a third use of Wild Shape per long rest here, which is great. In terms of our tactics here, they haven't changed. We're going to do Upcast Lightning Bolt with Destructive Wrath and a 4th level Summon Fey, and our damage numbers are the same as the 2014 version of the build once again. Moving on to level 13, we have gained some new features. So we gain the Elemental Fury feature. We can choose between Potent Cantrip or Primal Strike. Primal Strike is mainly for wild shape druids or if you're using a weapon, so we're going to take Potent Cantrip, which allows us to add our Wisdom modifier to our damage. In a vacuum, I'm going to just choose to take Inspiring Leader to give everybody temporary hit points. Our wild shape is now up to 8 forms that we can know with a max CR of 1, and we can fly. We get the Nature's Ward feature out of our subclass, and what this does, we are immune to poison, and we have a resistance to a damage type associated with our current land choice from our subclass spells feature. So Arid Land gives us fire resistance, Polar Land gives us cold, Temperate, which is our main choice, gives us lightning resistance, and Tropical gives us poison resistance. We also now have access to 4th and 5th level Druid spells. Now, the new Conjure Woodland Being spells is amazing, and you can use this spell very much like you can the new Spirit Guardians Emanation spell. And if you want to see a video on tactics that you can do with that spell, check in the card in the upper corner there. The Giant Insect spell is also very good for control here, and in generally speaking, again, you have a very flexible spell list and you're free to find the spells that serve your character best. Again, we are doing Lightning Bolt plus Destructive Wrath plus Summon Fey here, and our damage numbers are a little lower here by about 2 to 4 points, and this is due to our character having a 19 Wisdom at this point versus our 2014 character having a 20 Wisdom at this point, but we are a little bit more well-rounded due to the way that our general feats work. I'd say we have better defense, and a lot of the new spells in our class features are actually pretty darn good. All right, so moving on to our final check at level 17, we are a Cleric 3, Druid 14. We've gained that 3rd general feat to cap our Wisdom, potentially telekinetic here. We've gained the new Nature's Sanctuary, which is actually very good. What this does is a magic action, we can expend use of our Wild Shape again, and we can cause spectral trees and vines to appear within a 15-foot cube on the ground within 120 feet of ourselves. They last for 1 minute or until we have the incapacitated condition or die, and then we and our allies have half cover while in that area, so that's +2 to AC. And then we also have, and all our allies also gain our current resistance from our Nature's Ward, and as a bonus action, we can move the cube up to 60 feet to ground within 120 feet of yourself. So it kind of gives you this mobile area of defense for yourself and the whole party, and that's something I think is pretty darn powerful. We also have 6th and 7th level Druid spells here, but the tactics I want to use continue to be max damage, upcast lightning bolts with Summon Fey, and thanks to the fact that we are back to 20 Wisdom, we have the same damage as the 2014 version of the build. It is important to mention that the whole cast an emanation spell like Conjure Woodland Beings or Spirit Guardians, plus using your action to ready your movement, as I explained in that video about Spirit Guardians. This is a very valid tactic and has been since our character level 10 that you can use 4 damage per round, although it does cost you your reaction, but it is a cool and powerful option to have in our back pocket on this character. All right, it is time to summarize and kind of talk about these characters as a whole. So, what are the overall scores of these characters? So to get this, I take the damage reports, the damage of all of our damage reports at levels 6, 9, 13, and 17, and I average them all together. And for the 2014 version, this is an 86.7, and the 2024 version, this is an 86.0. And the 2024 is a little worse here because we underperformed that level 13 damage report thanks to having 19 wisdom. Compared to other burst damage builds I've made, these are pretty much the worst, although they are better than my old support warlord build I made way back in build number 5. But that said, this character, even though I am grading them against burst damage dealers, this is not a character I designed for burst damage, but more so a powerful and versatile caster that has a burst damage option. Now, if I was going to take these builds to level 20, the 2014 version, it just goes Druid 18. There's pretty much no question. But the 2024 version, I would very likely go Druid 17. This gives you 17th. This gives you 9th level Druid spells. The other option is to go Druid 16, Cleric 4. Now, the interesting thing here is if you take level 19 as 16 or 4, and then level 20 as the other, you can actually get 2 epic boon feats, but you miss out on 9th level spells, and I think I'd rather have the 9th level spells, so I recommend Druid 17 if you want to do this version of the build in 2024. Now, as to which version is more powerful, I believe the 2024 version of this build is by far more powerful. We have way more flexibility. We have a much better version of our subclass. We've got that origin feat to have shield. We have way better spell options. We've got all the power of feats and the new general feats that also increase stats, so we don't have to, spend an ability score increase just bumping stats. Another interesting question here is burst damage more relevant for games playing with the 2024 rules? Now, we don't fully know the answer to this because we haven't seen the 2024 monster manual, but we have seen some of the updated beasts in the player's handbook, and they are generally more dangerous offensively, but are squishier. We also know that as a whole, burst damage across the field has been toned down, like the nerfs to Paladin's Divine Smite, and the fact that you can't use Action Surge on the magic action anymore means that, especially for caster-based burst builds, you have a lot fewer options. So the power of a single, maximized damage lightning spell with Destructive Wrath out of Tempest Cleric could be actually significantly more powerful under a game in the 2024 rules, but again, it just depends on what's in the monster manual. But that said, I feel like this character could have pretty competitive burst damage under the 2024 rules for a caster, specifically because of that challenge affinity that we've multi-classed to get. One of the things I love about this character is that we are just a jack of all trades caster. We've got defense between shield and absorb elements with the 2024 version of the character. We've got great AC with medium armor and actually a physical shield. We have burst damage with our lightning bolts and destructive wrath. We've got great damage per round options, whether it is summon Fae or the conjure woodland beings plus ready movement tactic. We've got great control with all of the druid spells. We've got command for concentration free control out of cleric, and this character is actually pretty good at skills under the 2024 version of the rules, which is another thing that is fantastic. We've got great utility from a lot of spells and our wild shapes to infiltrate and that kind of thing, and overall I feel like this character would just be very effective and very fun to play. Interesting thing here on that note, the Cleric 1 dip giving us both Thaumaturge and Magician and medium armor on Druid builds in 2024 actually looks really good to me, and is an interesting thing you might want to consider. That said, full class characters under the 2024 rules are a lot better, so you do have to consider that kind of trade-off, and if those high level features are something that you want to delay or miss. So thanks for watching. This has been my Storm Shaman build. Going forward, I'm planning on doing class reviews on all of the new classes and kind of talking about what has changed for all these characters, and kind of what kind of new things can we expect from them, what is better, what is worse, what is the same, and we're going to be trying to slip in a build or two every other week. Now, in terms of 2024 versus 2014 builds, I still want to do a mix of them. I know my tables that I'm playing at personally aren't moving to the 2024 rules just yet, So if you have a preference for which rule set you would like to see me continue to make builds for, please let me know in the comments. As for now, I'm probably going to be doing a mix. And I'm looking forward to getting back into the swing of things and trying to get out content every week. So once again, my name is Nathan. Thanks for watching, and I will see you next time.